Picture this. Team USA, the perennial powerhouse, stumbling into the 2024 Olympics like a prize fighter with a glass jaw. They're vulnerable, folks, and the world can smell blood in the water. Remember that exhibition game? The one where they nearly lost to a team they should have steamrolled? Yeah, that one. It sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Suddenly, the invincible dream team looked, well, vincible. The swagger was gone, replaced by doubt. And let me tell you, in my 30 years of calling games, I've never seen anything quite like it. The USA coming into an Olympic tournament as underdogs? It was unthinkable, but there we were watching a dynasty teetering on the brink, and at the center of it all, a certain 6'2" sharpshooter with something to prove. Now let's talk about Steph Curry, the baby-faced assassin, the man who changed the game. 3-time NBA champion, 2-time MVP, greatest shooter in the history of the sport, but there was one glaring omission on that golden resume: an Olympic medal. Can you believe it? The man who'd rewritten every shooting record in the book had never stepped foot on an Olympic court. It was the white whale to his Captain Ahab, the final frontier for a player who'd conquered everything else. You could see it in his eyes every time he talked about it. That hunger, that burning desire to represent his country on the world's biggest stage. For years, circumstances kept him away. Injuries, scheduling conflicts, you name it. But not this time. No sir, this time Curry was all in. And let me tell you folks, he came to Paris with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Eiffel Tower. This wasn't just about winning for Steph. This was about cementing his legacy, about silencing every last doubter who'd ever questioned his greatness. Oh, and speaking of doubters, they were out in full force. You know, in all my years covering this sport, I've never seen a player of Curry's caliber face so much skepticism. The whispers were everywhere. He's too small for the international game, they said. He won't be able to handle the physicality, they claimed. And who can forget Mike James? Bless his heart, he went on national TV and called Steph Curry. Yes, that Steph Curry, one-dimensional. I nearly fell out of my chair when I heard that one, but you know what? That's the kind of talk that fuels legends. It's the kind of disrespect that turns good players into immortals. And let me tell you folks, Steph was hearing every word of it. You could see it in his eyes during practice, in the way he carried himself. He wasn't just in Paris to win, he was there to make a statement, to show the world that Steph Curry, the skinny kid from Davidson who revolutionized the game, could dominate on any court against any competition. As the tournament kicked off, all eyes were on Curry and Team USA. The anticipation was palpable, folks. You could cut the tension with a knife, but something wasn't quite right. Curry, the man we'd seen drain shots from the parking lot, the guy who'd made 40-footers look routine, was struggling. I'm talking rim-rattling misses, air balls, the whole 9 yards. It was like watching Superman stumble. The USA was winning games, sure, but it wasn't pretty. They were scraping by, looking nothing like the dominant force we'd expected, and Curry, he was at the center of it all, looking lost, looking human. In the group stages, he was shooting percentages that would make a high school player blush. The doubters were having a field day. See, they crowed, he can't handle the pressure. But let me tell you something, folks. In my 3 decades of covering basketball, I've learned one thing: never, ever count out a champion. And Steph Curry, he's as champion as they come. Now let's talk about Serbia. In the world of international basketball, they're no joke. These guys are tough, skilled, and they play with a chip on their shoulder the size of the Balkans. They came into this tournament with one goal: dethrone Team USA. And boy, were they looking good. They were knocking down threes, playing suffocating defense, and moving the ball like it was on a string. It was beautiful basketball, folks, the kind that makes purists weep with joy and their confidence through the roof. They'd beaten the USA twice in the lead up to the Olympics, and they weren't shy about reminding everyone. Their star player, I won't name names, but you know who I'm talking about, he was strutting around like he owned the place, and honestly, the way they were playing, it was hard to argue as they cruised through the tournament, dismantling teams left and right. One thing became clear: if Team USA wanted gold, they'd have to go through Serbia, and with the way Curry was playing, well, let's just say the odds weren't looking good. Ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't in Paris on that fateful day, you missed one for the ages. The gold medal game, USA versus Serbia, a clash of titans that had been brewing since day one. The atmosphere in that arena, electric doesn't even begin to describe it. You had fans from all over the world decked out in their colors, ready to witness history. The noise was deafening. I'm talking ear-splitting, can't hear yourself think loud. And the tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. You could see it on the players' faces during warm-ups. Curry, still struggling with his shot, looking focused, determined. The Serbians, confident, loose, ready to shock the world. As the teams lined up for the national anthems, you could feel it in your bones. This wasn't just a game. This was basketball at its purest, its most intense. 2 powerhouses, 1 gold medal, and millions watching around the world. In my 30 years of calling games, I'd never seen anything quite like it. As the ball went up for the opening tip, one thing was clear: we were in for a classic. From the opening whistle, this game was a roller coaster, folks. Serbia came out swinging. swinging, hitting shots from all over the court. They were up 10-2 before you could blink, playing with the confidence of a team that knew they belonged, but Team USA, they weren't about to roll over. They clawed back, trading punches like heavyweight fighters. It was basketball at its finest. Every possession a battle, every shot contested. The lead changed hands more times than I could count. 1 minute, Serbia would be up by 8, looking like they were about to run away with it. The next, the USA would rip off a 10-0 run, bringing the pro-American crowd to its feet. Back and forth they went, neither team able to land the knockout blow. And through it all, there was Curry, still struggling to find his rhythm. He'd hit a big 3, then missed 2 in a row. It was agonizing to watch, like seeing a Ferrari stuck in second gear. As the fourth quarter began, Serbia held a slim lead. They'd been in front for over 90% of the game, and you could feel the upset in the air. But in basketball, as in life, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. With about 6 minutes left in the game, something changed. You could feel it in the air, see it in Curry's eyes. It was like a switch had been flipped. Suddenly, the rim looked as big as the ocean to him. That silky smooth jumper, the one we'd seen thousands of times before, it was back. And when Steph Curry gets hot, folks, there's nothing on this earth that can cool him down. It started with a deep 3, well beyond the international line. Nothing but net. The crowd stirred. Then another, this time with a hand in his face. The arena exploded. Before you knew it, Curry was raining down threes like it was a game of Pop-A-Shot. Pull-up threes, step-back threes, threes off screens, you name it, he was hitting it. The Serbians, who had looked so confident all game, suddenly looked shell-shocked. They threw everything at him. Double teams, traps, you name it. But it didn't matter. Curry was in that zone, that magical place where great players go when the moment calls for greatness. In my 3 decades of covering basketball, I'd seen some incredible shooting performances, but this was something else entirely. This was Steph Curry, the greatest shooter who ever lived, writing his Olympic legacy in real time. As the clock ticked down, the tension in the arena was unbearable. Serbia, to their credit, wouldn't go away. Every time Curry hit a big shot, they'd answer. But in the last 3 minutes, folks, we witnessed something truly special. With the USA down by 2 and 2:45 on the clock, Curry pulled up from about 28 feet. Splash, USA by 1. The crowd went berserk. Serbia called timeout, tried to regroup, but Curry wasn't done. Off a curl, catch and shoot 25-footer, nothing but net, USA by 4. You could see the belief draining from the Serbian players' faces, but they fought back, cutting the lead to 1 with a minute to go, and then the dagger Curry double team somehow found space, rose up from nearly 30 feet. The ball seemed to hang in the air forever, and when it splashed through, pandemonium, but he wasn't done. With 15 seconds left, Serbia down 4, desperate to foul, Curry somehow got free, caught the ball in the corner, and before the defender could even get a hand up, he let it fly. Game over. The Michael Jordan of shooting had just had his Michael Jordan moment. As the final buzzer sounded, the arena erupted. USA 104, Serbia 98. Curry, having scored 17 points in the final 3 minutes, fell to his knees, overcome with emotion. His teammates mobbed him, lifting him off the ground. The Serbian players, in a show of tremendous sportsmanship, came over to congratulate him. In the stands, fans were hugging, crying, screaming in joy. It was pandemonium of the best kind. As the medal ceremony began, you could see tears in Curry's eyes as the gold medal was placed around his neck. When the Star-Spangled Banner played, he sang every word, hand over his heart, that gold medal gleaming in the arena lights. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, the kind of moment that reminds us why we love sports. In that moment, Steph Curry wasn't just a basketball player, he was an Olympic hero. He was the man who had led Team USA back to the top of the basketball world, and as he stood there basking in the glow of victory, you couldn't help but feel that you had just witnessed something truly historic. In the aftermath of that incredible performance, the basketball world was in awe. Those same critics who had doubted Curry, they were eating their words faster than you can say three-pointer. Sports shows were falling over themselves to praise him. Former players were tweeting their amazement. Even Mike James, bless his heart, had to admit he'd been wrong. "I've never been happier to be proven wrong," he tweeted. Steph Curry isn't one-dimensional. He's on another dimension entirely. The analytics guys were having a field day too. Curry's true shooting percentage in those final 3 minutes, staggering 102%, his points per possession off the charts, but numbers could never do justice to what we'd witnessed. This wasn't just a great performance, this was a legacy-defining moment, the kind of performance that gets talked about for generations. In those 18 minutes, Curry didn't just win a gold medal. He silenced every doubter, answered every critic, and left no question as to his greatness. As the dust settles on what many are calling the greatest Olympic basketball performance of all time, one thing is clear: Steph Curry's legacy is secure. In my 30 years of covering this sport, I've seen some all-time greats. I've seen Jordan's flu game, Kobe's 81-point masterpiece, LeBron's block in Game 7. But what Curry did in Paris, that's right up there with the best of them. He didn't just win a gold medal, he redefined what's possible on a basketball court. He showed that no moment is too big, no stage too bright. This performance cements Curry's status not just as the greatest shooter of all time, that was never in doubt, but as one of the greatest players, period. His impact on the game goes beyond numbers. He's changed how basketball is played from the NBA all the way down to youth leagues. Kids around the world don't want to be like Mike anymore. They want to shoot like Steph, and after what we saw in Paris, who can blame them? Years from now, when we talk about the giants of the game, Curry's name will be right there at the top. And when we do, we'll remember this game, this performance, this moment when Steph Curry showed the world that he's not just a great shooter, he's a legend, a hero, an Olympic champion, and now, undeniably, one of the greatest to ever play the game. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to slam that like button and share this video with your basketball crazy friends. And that's a wrap from Dunk Hub. Catch you in a few days. Stay ballin'.